Let's make sense of this.
Let's make sense.
Sensemakers.
Hey guys.
Hey, Jonathan.
Hey, Jonathan.
So welcome to today's call where we're going to talk about our expectations and hopes for this year's Tableau Conference. So in thinking about this year's Tableau Conference, I've been thinking it's one of the most important Tableau conferences in years, perhaps the most important.
The most important Tableau conference in years.
So I want to dive into why I think that. But first, just to talk about kind of audiences, because a lot of different people may see this in the weeks before the conference. So for us, if you're brand new to Tableau, this probably isn't, and brand new to the conference, this isn't the call for you. There's other videos out there that people do introducing Tableau Conference, what it's like. It's an amazing experience. This is my 15th or so Tableau Conference I'm going to. So it's worth it for me. So the people I'm thinking about as we're talking today are people who are using Tableau on a regular basis. Maybe you've heard some things about Tableau Next or Tableau Einstein, kind of like Tableau's up to some new stuff. What is it? What is all of that? And then also if you're a manager or an executive who's running a Tableau install or you're paying for Tableau licensing, where is Tableau going? What are the messages we're looking for to hear from Tableau this year? Because we're going to be hearing a lot of new things from them.
Yeah, I think it is an inflection point in data and analytics overall. But yeah, for leaders, they're getting questioned often of like, why aren't you using XYZ? Why aren't you using this new product? What has Tableau done for us lately? And so, yeah, I think it is, in that bigger context, it's definitely a huge moment in the history of Tableau as a product and in data and analytics overall.
Jonathan, you've been to 15 of these Tableau conferences. There was a
That's
whole
crazy.
wave there where we were just literally unleashing the power of data for the last decade and a half. And now there's this new wave that's beginning. This sort of lightning bolt of AI has struck. And it feels to me a little bit as though we haven't even yet heard the thunderclap. And so I would tend to agree that this year's conference is going to be among the most important of the last decade, maybe the next for Tableau, because they really need to kind of bring together what is their stance, what is their next approach to this new generation of analytics.
Yeah, so with that in mind, I think it's worthwhile to just kind of frame a little bit about what we have and what Tableau has talked about for the future. So we've got kind of today, spring of 2025 in the middle here. Mm-hmm. And then Tableau built out Tableau Desktop, Tableau Server. Those are part of what Tableau calls Tableau Core now. And then they introduced Cloud several years ago as a cloud-only version of Server to help people out. And then Prep came along as well to support data prep for Tableau. And then the thing that Tableau first announced last year at conference, and they were talking about the fourth wave of analytics and what's next, and the product name they've settled on is Tableau Next. And so Tableau Next, from what we've seen so far, they're talking about a data layer, data prep, semantic model, visualizations, integrating intelligent agents, having a marketplace to make it easier for people to share other visualizations. And Tableau Tim has done some amazing videos on detailing Tableau Next. He's got a long one, he's got a short one. We're going to link to those, not spend a whole lot of time on it because we're going to hear more at Tableau Conference. Now, one of the things with the way Tableau is talked about, what Tableau Next does is there's all these different things that we do with data. When we think about what are we trying to create with the tools that we're using. So we have that person who's just like, what are my numbers today? Or what are my numbers this week, this quarter? And Pulse is kind of designed to hit that, Tableau Pulse.
That give me the number person.
Exactly. And The visual exploratory analytics, that is what Tableau Desktop started out as, is a whole other piece, and there's these other parts of it. And so Tableau Core has been used to one degree or another to address all of those. But then there's these other things that we need to do with data as well to get there that are just as important in creating our data products. And so we can apply different features of Tableau Core to all of those. So I'm throwing data as soon as I can into desktop to do my data cleansing and so on. Now, Tableau Pulse is not trying to do everything that Tableau Core does. It's a new tool, and it's also trying to provide this integrated solution that makes some things easier, like having that integrated workflow built in that can make analytics apps a lot easier to build in Pulse than they have been in Tableau Core.
I think you mean Next.
Tableau Next. Thank you. Yep.
And see, that's one of those points of like how many different names there are in this world of like, it's even hard for somebody who's been to 15 Tableau conferences to keep them straight.
Yes.
So keep going.
Yeah, and Salesforce has been through some changes in product naming and so on. So right now we have this Next and Core. And so kind of moving into thinking about conference, one of my questions is, what is that future of Core? Like that's how all of us on the call came to using Tableau, is through this. So, and we know Next isn't going to support everything that we do. It's bringing some new capabilities. What is that future of Core like? What is the direction for Next, and how do the two integrate? There's a whole set of questions around that.
And I think that's probably why this, beyond just like AI is everywhere, but they've developed this product for at least 15 years because you've been to 15 Tableau conferences. And so where are they headed? Like, what are they going to do with this core set of functionality? Like, even if you go back and look at the original paper that is the underlying piece of Tableau, like the UI has not changed dramatically. And so they've had this continuity of a product. And so is that very familiar interface going away, and where it's no longer needed or necessary? And I think that, for me, like, is one of the pivotal things that I see from Tableau is that UI and that interface, and then really everything around it. And so, yeah, what do we expect them to do? So that's what I'm looking for.
One of my main questions, if I weave together what I'm hearing both of you say, Jonathan is saying, I'm tuned into what are they doing with Core? Are they keeping Core alive? What are they doing with Next? How coherent is their messaging in the way that they bring these things together? Because there's a need for Next, and yet what are they doing in order to bring Core together? And then I listen to Shaun, and I hear Shaun bring up the grammar of graphics and data visualization and that original magic sauce that came out of Stanford so long ago that is Tableau and data visualization. And I think that's one of the things that I'm most curious about is what's happening with visualization, right? Because at the moment, any other BI and analytics tool in the marketplace can make some canned reports, but it doesn't do the grammar of graphics in the way that Tableau does. And so that's one of the things that I'm tuned into is what's happening in the product mix with visualization.
Yeah, that's all true for me. And I'll add one more point for me is, and I think this is true of all of us, is there's this part of, and Tableau addressed it last year, this key problem of data is fragmented. And part of what Tableau is trying to address with Tableau Next in some ways is to have more tighter integration between these different components of the things we want to do with data. And at the same time, I still feel like this is kind of unsolved problem of how do we get our data modeling to be the right way to support the business questions we need to answer, that we have a semantic layer that lets a lot of people across the organization answer questions and answer them accurately, and be able to do all of that with the performance that we need. Whether that's data pipeline processing times or the render times on our dashboards.
Yep, I agree. It's something I've come to term the elusive triangle. This intersection of the need for good, high integrity data modeling with referential integrity, data models that actually fit together and produce accurate results with a solid semantic layer on top so that you can speak to it and that actually has good performance. And it seems like a lot of organizations, Tableau rightly named these problems with the data industry last year, that the data is fragmented, the users don't trust the insights, that the insights, even after they're generated, can be overlooked. And then at the end of last year's conference, we came back, Jonathan, you and I, we added one more problem, and that was that Tableau Core, as it was kind of a dead-end tool. It was a place where you would build a dashboard, but then the flow and the fluidity of that information that needed to circulate back into other parts of the organization wasn't enabled. And this is where we got the headless BI incentive, and this is where kind of all of the product mix is going. And yet, in all of this, we've got all of these problems. How is it that we're going to focus on this elusive triangle of bringing these three things together? Because without these three things, it still just doesn't work.
Or it works to some degree, but not that full capability. And the other piece within this is AI and what can AI bring to the table. And if we don't have the data available in that semantic layer with the performance that we need, the AI is not going to be as useful as we want it to be.
This is what I mean by it doesn't work, because I don't know, if I look at that users don't trust the insights, if I'm pointing AI at a data model that is kludged to begin with, if I'm pointing AI at a data model that doesn't have well-defined, tight, tidy semantics, then can I trust the insights?
Yeah, I think it's massive as far as nothing in the market that I really see that's addressing all three of these really, really well. And, if you think of the wave or the pendulum, whatever example you want to use, we're the pendulum is swinging back towards integration and consolidation, where, Tableau came out of this world and was created in this world where we were in that, and it enabled us to bring things together from these multiple systems and having data locked into whatever vendor's system. And so really just bringing it back together and breaking it out. And so it's interesting to see that. But yeah.
So how will we be able to tell at the Tableau conference if Tableau is addressing it? What are you all going to be looking for?
I mean, I think what I'm looking for is how long are they talking about each of these things? And so, we see people get into the granular details of analyzing whoever the presidential candidate is, their State of the Union, and which words they use and how much time they spend on each thing. And so this is really a State of the Union of Tableau and Salesforce. And so what are those keywords that we hear over and over and over again? How many times do we hear AI? How long do they talk about Tableau Next versus Tableau Core? And so I'm looking for those things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for coherence in general. Like my takeaway from the fourth wave keynote was just a little bit of a lack of bringing it all together and being able to congeal a sincere, coherent message. And like Shaun pointed out, we've got so many different product names, so many different kind of I think the Gartner report has maybe 10 different active products that are under the Tableau umbrella at the moment, whereas many of the other vendors are much more condensed and much more consolidated. And so when I look at the keynote, we're going to have the CEO, the chief of product, the chief of marketing. I'm looking for coherence of their message and their ability to show leadership into this next generation.
Yeah. For me, there's a piece of, sometimes I've seen, even going back several years when machine learning was the hot newness, and people saying, I'm going to be able to apply ML to your data and it's going to do magic. And in a lot of cases, it didn't, because the data wasn't there in the way it needed to be of this elusive triangle. Is Tableau really addressing that? For me, are they solving that sort of first mile problem of analytics, of getting our data into a structure that we can then use?
Yeah, yeah. This is one of the things that Robert brought up last year was just that: are we pointing AI at the right things? Like, can we be using AI to assist the solving of that elusive triangle? Can we be using AI to solve the hard problems, not just to put a chat interface around the easy ones?
Yeah. So one thing I'll be doing is Tableau. There's a number of sessions at the conference where Tableau will be demoing the new features and so on, where product managers primarily are going to be doing that. And then they have their booths set up to demo things, talking with them and getting that sense of what is it they're doing? What about the particular elements of my data pipelines and structures that I care about, and find out what's going on there.
And I think I'm looking for like, what is that narrative, and how does the audience respond? And one thing I was thinking about this morning was, what's the response actually in the keynote auditorium versus what's because they beam the conference all around the conference, or the keynote all around the conference center. And so what is the response in the room versus like in the conference area? And is there a difference? And how are people taking in this kind of overwhelm of names and this really massive inflection point and change in Tableau Conference, or sorry, in Tableau as a product and data and analytics overall?
And that's a really great point. And it's also, who are they speaking to?
Yeah.
In those messages. And it was something I was thinking about the other day, and just in the difference in messaging between the sort of Tableau that I grew up with in a way, which is the cycle of visual analytics, which is very much, it's putting the person who's doing the analysis at the center of everything. And then here's Tableau's Agentforce marketing, which puts the Salesforce platform and Data Cloud at the center, and then these expanding rings of connectivity elsewhere from all of that. It's very different marketing.
Yeah, and I think, Jonathan, you've got the right idea to be at the booths, looking at the technology, doing the best that you can to get under the hood, speaking to the product managers, getting your hands on the tech. Because one concern that I have about wrapping all of these things in this marketing is that the product may or may not be able to live up to those promises. So, for example, Data Cloud is a fairly new technology. They've got a lot of marketing wrapped around that. It advertises that I can connect to my Snowflake data in situ, zero copy. But what happens if my data isn't in Snowflake? Can I use Data Cloud? Can I use any of this new Tableau Next stuff if I've got a Postgres database or an Oracle database? And if so, how does that work? What's going on under the hood in order to actually cable up the functionality and solve this elusive triangle in order to make this kind of concentric rings of marketing slide come true?
Yeah, I would encourage our listeners even just to try and replicate what you see in devs on stage or just in some of their product demos. Replicate it on the real thing. See what happens, because we all know the terror of a live tech demo. And does the product that they're, and some of the smoke and mirrors that can happen there. And so do we think, are you able to actually see that in the product itself that you're able to get your fingers on? And so that's an interesting way to take that.
Shaun, I would ask a question. You've used the words inflection point. What do you mean by that? Why is this year's Tableau conference and this year's kind of pivot or change in direction an inflection point?
Yeah, I think when we look at the market overall, AI is changing everything massively, but Tableau as a product itself has evolved and changed. And so is Salesforce going to continue to invest in that core product and support those core users with a smooth on-ramp and smooth flow into Tableau Next? Or is it just kind of chaos and everything going everywhere all at once? And I think that's why this is an inflection point, is Tableau, the big market forces, but also Tableau as a product, and where is that headed? That's what I'm looking for, and I think that's why this is such a big inflection point for the company, for the product, and for the industry, and something that I've built my career around is what's the future? Am I going to be a data engineer, or am I going to be somebody that is consulting with the business to help them understand their data? And I think that's kind of the inflection point that we're seeing from a product and a person standpoint.
Yeah, I get that. And then the resonance of that messaging to the customer base that has invested so much of their time and energy into Tableau Core, are they able to bring that time and energy investment from that customer base forward into the future to Tableau Next? And how well do they bring those things together?
Yeah, those are great points.
Yeah. So I think in kind of thinking what are outcomes of conference that we might see kind of thing. Like one would be, we understand where Tableau Next is, where Tableau Core is, where they're going. There's some
They lay
clarity
it all out
there.
very clearly.
That we have, and if we don't have answers because Tableau doesn't have answers, that's fine. But at least we know what we don't know. I could see another end where there's a huge amount of focus on Tableau Next. And all of us who are using Core are kind of in the, what about us?
Feeling abandoned, maybe.
Sort of thing. Yeah, maybe feeling abandoned in that way. And then there's I think for me, kind of I don't know, like as a Tableau Core user, that would be sort of a worse outcome. But also if the messaging's really muddled, then I think that's going to be hard for us to deal with in this case. Because if Tableau can't be clear about what they're saying, how are we going to know about the decisions that we're making for our licensing 2, 3, 5, 7 years from now?
Right.
And that's I think those are all great points. And it's really, how does the audience react to that? Like, those are the outcomes. And then what do people think about that? What do they think about what message that's sending? And so that's what I'm looking for.
What's the read of the room? Okay. Yep. Well, guys, this has been a really great conversation between the three of us. Those of you watching who have watched us in the past might kind of see something different about our environment. We're in the process here of moving shop. We're moving into our new virtual campus. And we're not done yet moving. So what we thought is that we would beam over Robert, try to get Robert's opinion. Robert's still over at the old campus. Robert, you've been kind of watching this conversation unfold. What are your thoughts?
Hey, everybody. It's great to join you. New place looks great.
Thanks.
Your shirt looks great.
I love it. And it actually goes into kind of what I've been sitting here listening to and thinking about. Remembering how Tableau was called the Wild Wild West is that also brings to mind this idea of very intense competition. This is an incredibly competitive space, and we cannot assume that the current leader, the current person or company who has the greatest market share is going to be the leader even next year. I think who might emerge as the leader depends on a couple of things. One, speed. Do they deliver on their promises faster than anyone else? Number two, do we trust them? Do they not only deliver on their promises, but do they deliver results that we can trust? And, as long as I have been in this community of people who have just loved exploring data and building data analytics and dashboards and all the things that Tableau has done over the years, I just wonder, can we trust the results of what's going to happen? Can we trust that the promises made at this conference are going to be delivered? There have been promises that I'm still waiting to be delivered, and that's not so fun. So I'm looking forward to seeing not just what's going to be announced as a new vision, a new direction, but what's really going to come about and be delivered in the very near future. Because again, speed is of the essence. I'm seeing that every single day with every single AI platform available to us. And if you can deliver well, that's great. But if you don't deliver well and fast, you're out of the competition.
Yep. So I'm seeing, Robert, you're really hearkening to the wave of evolution that we ushered in 10 or 15 years ago, freeing up the analyst. Now, kind of the pendulum, as Shaun mentioned, is swinging back. Speed and trust are of the essence. These are all just critical conversations. I think all of the leaders that have a significant investment in Tableau are keeping an eye out, keeping, as Jonathan mentioned, a very watchful stance on what are they going to do with their licenses over the coming few years. They can't afford to make missteps in this market that's moving so quickly. And that is what makes this conference one of the most important Tableau conferences of the last decade, maybe of the next. Definitely a sea change is underway. So thank you guys for coming together for this conversation. It's great to have such a collection of, if we were to count 40, 50 years of Tableau experience. Yeah. Anybody who is out there at the conference, please reach out, meet up. We would love to talk to you, love to chat, and we look forward to see you there.
Let's make sense of this.
Let's make sense.